warm welcome to Africa Focus, a special Africa news program on Switch TV, Kenya's #1 youth television channel, right here from the middle of Kenya's capital, Nairobi. My name is Cheritich Bernadette. Our sign language interpreter today is Miss Tracy Dorcas. Now here are the stories that are making headlines.
An airline in Senegal maintains a weekly flight with a completely empty airplane. In South Sudan, a biodiversity hotspot wedged between the continent's tropical jungle and dry, desolate desert.
Now let's take a look at the stories making headlines around the continent.
Armed criminals on motorcycles killed dozens of people in a string of attacks in villages in the recentive northwest of Nigeria. Dozens of gunmen, described locally as bandits, raided 5 villages close to the border with Niger in Sokoto State. Regional Governor Amin Waziri said the attack came as a rude shock as security officials had recently visited the area to try the calm tensions. Northwestern Nigeria has been racked by years of violence involving clashes between rival communities over land, attacks by heavily armed criminal gangs, and reprisal killings by vigilante groups. Cattle rustling and kidnapping for ransom have flourished in the security vacuum. Nigeria's armed forces launched bombing raids against camps in neighboring areas of the northwest as part of latest efforts to curb attacks. The army said the bombing campaign had killed 300 of bandits, but there has been no independent confirmation of the death tolls. Authorities have previously launched repeated military operations and local peace talks to try to end the violence. Nearly 130,000 Tunisia senior high school students are reunited with their classmates after more than 2 months without classes due to coronavirus lockdown in order to complete the school year curriculum before the baccalaureate exams scheduled for July 8th to 15th. The Tunisian Ministry of Education has introduced health measures to allow classes to resume, such as taking temperatures at the entrance of school, distributing hydroalcoholic gel and protective masks, enforcing physical distance, and reducing classes by half. South Africa's strict lockdown provides a number of challenges for its large immigrant community who have been left with no source of income for weeks. Despite money being set aside for provision of aid and relief, many of these immigrants will not be recipients due to their status in the country.
So we kick off from the west of West Africa, where an airline in Senegal maintains a weekly flight with a completely empty airline. In the absence of tourists, South African game farmers secretly donate meat from cattle animals to poor communities. Companies in Africa respond to unique challenges thrown at them by COVID-19. Let's take a look.
Say that the coronavirus has thrown life up in the air is a serious understatement. But it's particularly pertinent for the small Senegalese airline Transair. Founded 10 years ago, the company has flown through the many challenges of launching an airline in Africa, where regulations often strangle opportunities and national flagship carriers dominate. The coronavirus has only added more turbulence to the situation. But Transair isn't giving up. Even though it currently has 0 passengers, as Senegal has suspended all flights until June 30th, every week a Transair plane makes a trip, completely empty. This way, the airplane's machines stay clean and the pilots get practice. And the company fulfills the required minimum flights to retain its license.
When
you need to make a commercial flight, if you're rusty, inevitably flight safety can be affected. So it's good to keep flying regularly.
An airplane is a machine that is designed to work. If the plane doesn't fly, the machine doesn't work, and when you restart late, if a minimum of maintenance is not done, you can have a lot of problems.
Businesses elsewhere have also had to find solutions to new challenges. In the case of South African game farmers, what to do with surplus meat. These anonymous farmers are donating the meat from culling to poor communities in the area. Harsh restrictions have hampered thousands of South Africans from working and earning a living.
We cannot have access to what we have, and then just around the corner, people, through no fault of their own, are going hungry. So it's actually an easy decision. It's the right thing to do.
Tanzania, meanwhile, has reopened beaches, bars and restaurants after President John Magufuli said coronavirus cases are declining in hospitals. The country hasn't published virus figures for several weeks now.
The government has announced people still need to take precautions since the coronavirus still exists. We have also been taking precautions here to protect our staff and our customers, and this is by making sure all relevant measures are followed.
In other news this week, Burundi's main opposition party has rejected the results of its presidential election. Ruling party candidate Evariste Ndayishimiye was announced the winner of the May 20th polls with almost 70% of votes. His main challenger, Agathon Rwasa, trailed with just over 24%. Speaking to AFP shortly after the vote, Rwasa told AFP that fraud had taken place.
We have had cases where dead people have been mentioned as having voted because their voter cards were printed and distributed to people who went to vote in their place.
In the midst of the pandemic, Muslims celebrated Eid, marking the end of the holy month of Ramadan. Muslims gathered in the Somali capital Mogadishu for celebrations just a day before a deadly explosion killed 5 people in the interior of the country. Huge crowds gathered for prayer in Senegal, most wearing masks. In northeastern Nigeria's Maiduguri, thousands of people who had fled conflict attended Eid prayers in a camp for internally displaced persons. And Mauritanians rushed to get home in time for a curfew in place during the 3 days of Eid celebrations. Restrictions were imposed from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. every day.
Now, China is playing a key role in enhancing the manufacturing capacity of African countries. That has helped many nations in the continent record steady economic growth over the last decade. In Uganda, the Manufacturing Association says that the increasing number of Chinese factories is helping industrialize the country. Chinese investors have established industrial parks in different parts of the country. CGTN's Isabel Nyakira has that report.
Paul Zhang came to Africa 2 decades ago. He lived in Tanzania for 2 years, but when he visited Uganda, he never looked back.
When I arrived to Entebbe, whoa, amazing. Good weather, beautiful lake. And another good thing, people very friendly. Then I decided, I do business here.
Paul runs a chain of businesses in Uganda. They range from real estate to the hospitality industry. But his passion is in manufacturing. He produces a wide range of products from steel to plywood, bulbs, apparel, electricity cables and mattresses.
People sleeping in the, use timber and grass build a house. Me also have a question. Paulo Zhang, I asking myself, why not to make steel? In China, make everything. They have enough technology, enough equipment. And then I got another friends, come to Uganda. We to do business. Now you can see everywhere people build a house. You know why? Price. Good quality, also good price. If too expensive, people no money to buy.
A 2019 report by a local research firm, Accord, shows that by the end of 2017, Chinese companies had invested over $4 billion in Uganda. The government offered them free land to set up industrial parks in the central and eastern part of the country, bordering Kenya. The Ugandan president also ordered that investors be given preferential treatment, including tax breaks.
I'm not interested in taxes of factory owners, direct taxes. I'm not interested. Direct taxes. That's why we give you tax holiday of 10 years. You just bring the factory, bring the machines, and start producing.
The same research report by Accord showed that by the end of 2017, 18,000 jobs had been created by Chinese companies for Ugandans. But there are general concerns from a section of the public that the government is favoring largely the foreign over local investors.
To accept that to learn, to grow, you have to open up your space. This happened in Singapore, it happened in Malaysia, it happened in Thailand. The Chinese came, and there was initially a pushback, but then they allowed them to settle in. And that's how the countries got a different work ethic. And they started doing things differently. Their manufacturing base transformed radically. So we can do it as a country.
But for now, Paul Zhang is thinking about his next big project, a car assembly plant that will build brand new vehicles for both the Ugandan and export markets. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Now, South Sudan is one of Africa's wildlife Edens, a biodiversity of a hotspot wedged between the continent's tropical jungles and dry, desolate deserts. The country is custodian to some of Africa's latest explored wild habitats, but plagued by violence and unrest. Hardly a choice for holiday safari. Take a look at this.
This is South Sudan, one of Africa's wildlife Edens, a global biodiversity hotspot wedged between the continent's tropical jungles and dry, desolate deserts. But it's almost never seen by outsiders. Disastrous civil wars have left South Sudan with few paved roads or airstrips. It is the size of France, but huge swaths are isolated or impenetrable. These are some of the least explored and most remarkable wild habitats in Africa. South Sudan boasts Africa's biggest wetland, the Sad, and its largest intact savanna, a stretch of untouched wilderness east of the White Nile that reaches all the way to Ethiopia.
Peace will be crucial for this country. There's tremendous wildlife resources here, but they also, of course, have suffered tremendously over the decades of war, and particularly in the past 6 years, of course. But it's still out there. So if peace comes together now, and we all hope for that, of course, and stability comes back to the country, then the wildlife is still there. And if protection will be put in place, adequate protection in all the protected areas, but also outside of the protected areas, because a lot of the wildlife moves outside of the protected areas, then definitely this natural heritage will be secured for the future.
The mega herds leave miles-long scars in the grasslands, clearly visible from the sky. In scale and scope, the migration is rivaled only by the fabled wildebeest crossing in the Mara and Serengeti. But South Sudan is also custodian to early populations of lions, elephants, and countless other endangered species that survived against all odds, decades of war and near decimation by poachers.
And we've got plenty of white-eared calves, which are almost competing with the wildebeest in Tanzania and Kenya. See, so South Sudan is still very virgin, and tourists will come here as soon as the government is formed and peace is on. Many of them will come to South Sudan here to see the wildlife of South Sudan.
This natural heritage, however, is under constant threat, and wildlife conservation, where it is done at all, it's difficult and dangerous. Researchers and rangers contend with rebel militias and well-armed poachers in remote, often lawless terrain, where government control is weak.
So continue interacting with us on our SMS line 22999, on our social media platforms at Switch TV Kenya, throughout our social media platforms. Give us your 2 cents about the show. We're going to take a short break for now. However, coming up after the break,
driving screens in Nigeria have cooked up a safe way to go out.
Welcome back to the show. Now, over 200 vehicles flock to a drive-in theater show in Nigeria's capital, Abuja, to watch a live performance from their cars. With cinemas emptied across the world because of the pandemic, drive-in screens have a seen of resurgence in popularity, offering those who have not coped up to the home for months to a safe way to go out. Let's take a look at this interesting story.
As the coronavirus pandemic continues to put a strain on film industries across the world, drive-in cinemas have reported a surge in attendance in the United States, Germany, France and part of Asia. Drive-in cinemas are experiencing a boom not just for films but for church services and concerts, with regular cinemas shuttered and public officials prohibiting large gatherings of people. Drive-in theaters appear to be having a renaissance of sorts.
Of course, we know we cannot gather, so the organizers of the show today have decided that we could do a drive-in theater where we have to watch the theater performances in our cars. I just stepped out to get popcorn. That's why you see me outside. Otherwise, I should be in the car.
After dwindling in numbers over the decades, existing drive-ins as well as pop-up versions are seeing a wave of customers. Back here in Nigeria, as the effects of coronavirus pandemic bite harder in Nollywood, a Nigerian filmmaker Charles Okpaleke is pioneering the introduction of drive-in cinemas in Abuja and Lagos.
And this beautiful experiment started from just an idea. The idea is born out of the fact that, there must be a solution. We cannot just accept that, things will just be the way it has been in the past 3 months. So for us, it's reassuring that there is hope.
You can stay and listen in your car because we are on the head mic. It took some technology to put it through, but to the glory of God, you could see that today we have a whole lot of Abuja people coming out here. There's a great luck here now. A lot of cars, more than 200 cars came in here today to see Gripam. And they're excited. It was a great show, and I'm happy we made it happen.
Mr. Okpaleke, who brought the lights of Neka the Pretty Serpent, Glamour Girls and Rattlesnake, 5 years after he acquired the rights to Living in Bondage, will be screened at the drive-in cinema holding at Transcorp Hilton Car Park, Abuja.
So the Kenya Red Cross Society is on the forefront in the fight against coronavirus pandemic in the country as it helps the less fortunate Kenyans in many across the country. The society has been traversing the country to identify the needy and distribute food and non-food items to the needy. Kenya Red Cross Governor Francis Masika led the team at Masinga to help the residents, with Masinga residents saying that their lives has been difficult following calamities of locust invasion, floods and the COVID-19 pandemic.
Katika familia yangu niko na watoto watatu, mama na mimi watano. Sote tuko watu watano. Tumekuwa na changamoto wakati ili janga la COVID-19 limeanza. Chakula imekuwa ni shida na tunakumbalika tukae kwa nyumba tukiendelea na kujikinga kwa hii corona.
Today we are here in Kiva. We've come to support the community here. The community has been affected by triple disasters. They have been affected by drought previously, and then they got affected by the locust invasion that swept away a lot of, swept most of their crops. And then they've also been affected by floods. In fact, a number of households here were swept away. So the resilience of the community has really been weakened, and we have distributed foods to about 67 households, hoping that at least this will, give them a break for a little while. And the other challenge in this area is that there are very many persons living with disability, and we have targeted them as we do the distribution of food. Thank you.
I've seen what the management has done in terms of organizing for this event, and it has taken a very short time. It has been done very well, and we thank those volunteers, including the management, for having done this good job. The information we have is that the community was affected by floods. They were also affected by locusts. And this is a drought area. And we have made our contributions in terms of what we have brought to them. It's not much, but the community is very happy with it. And we look forward to continue working with them and see how we can continue to help them.
Now, on to some issues from the west of Africa. In Ayawa, a poor district of Lagos, the inhabitants suffer from the economic situation despite the ease of lockdown. The government announced it would carry out food distributions in the poorest neighborhoods, but according to many residents from Ayawa, they have not received any food aid and are still suffering from hunger.
African nations grappling to contain coronavirus are scrambling to stop the outbreak worsening the impact of other killer diseases. Across the continent, countries regularly face surge from a raft of diseases that flourish in the humid weather and prey on weak health systems. Some countries like Nigeria or Democratic Republic of Congo are especially susceptible and are already facing a constant battle on many fronts, even before the arrival of coronavirus.
But we thank God there is no outbreak of the COVID-19. But the COVID we have here is COVID hunger. A lot of people are going hungry. There is no food to eat.
I haven't seen anything change to me because the economy is still down. There is no money, there is nothing. It's not everybody that can go out. Like me now, I work with a vendor company whereby we normally supply drinks to the party. And then currently, as I'm talking to you, there is nobody that can do party in this country.
Officials in numerous countries have warned that a focus on tackling coronavirus could rob attention from other pressing threats. Nigeria's health minister has promised to distribute 8 million mosquito nets and provide preventive treatment to over 4 million children this year. Nigeria, one of the last countries in the world to report wild poliovirus infection, along with Afghanistan and Pakistan, was said to be declared officially free of the scourge in June after 3 years without a case.
They say they are going to give people some money or some food. When I got to get to the place, the crowd there is much. And for instance, you can look at, I don't know if you can go through this doors, you can see something that they wrote on the doors. These numbers.
Yes.
They came, they collected all the information that are going to give people some things to manage. More than a month now, they just came, write names and write numbers. We have not seen them till now.
WHO says that 2,500 of its staff and personnel from partner organizations are still continuing surveillance for any outbreak of polio in Africa's most populous nation. But the hard choice was made to halt door-to-door vaccination campaigns that had already been hit by insecurity in the north of the country.
Now to the south of Africa, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa said a controversial ban on the sale of alcohol would be lifted from home consumption when the country moves into level 3 of a 5-tier coronavirus lockdown next month. South Africans were prohibited from buying alcohol and cigarettes when the country went into one of the world's strictest lockdown on March 27th. The booze ban was meant to prevent a spike in violence and reduce pressure on emergency wards as hospitals geared up to face a virus that had already infected at least 22,583 people across the country and killed already 429 people. South Africa started gradually easing confinement measures on May 1st, allowing citizens to exercise outdoors in the morning and some businesses to partially resume operations. Ramaphosa said the alert level would now be lowered from level 4 to level 3 with a differentiated approach to deal with the coronavirus hotspots. Now, that's all for today on Africa Focus. But of course, keep the conversation going. One on our social media platforms, at Switch TV Kenya on Twitter and on Facebook. Send us your SMSs free of charge on 22999. A big thank you to you for watching. My name is Cherotich Bernadette. Our sign language interpreter today has been Miss Tracy Dorcas. A reminder for you to keep maintaining high standards of hygiene. Stay at home, save lives. Now, until again, see you next time. Stay safe and goodbye.